Welcome to the Wake Up Call Live, where we have authentic, action-oriented conversations about creating truly inclusive workplaces where people feel they belong. Hi, I'm Lori Battaglia. I'm the CEO of Aligned at Work, and each month I sit down with change makers that are navigating the difficult waters of life and work. We dive deep into what's working, what isn't, and what's next in leadership and life. It's about real people and real impact. I invite you to be part of the conversation. You can put a question or a comment in the box and we'll be happy to address it on the show. Your voice matters. I can't wait for you to meet today's guest. And I am really excited myself. So today we're going to be talking to Yasmin Rivera-Klein, and she is a colleague and a friend. And Yasmin, I think you're on mute, just in case we start talking and you don't hear any sound. So I'm Lori Battaglia. I'm the CEO of Aligned at Work in Scottsdale, Arizona. And Aligned at Work works with organization leaders that really care about creating cultures of inclusion and belonging and making sure that everybody feels like they really want to work there. And so usually I start out with a little, here's how we met, but I'm going to let Yasmin introduce herself first. So go right ahead, give us a little introduction as to who you are.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you, Lori, and the entire Aligned at Work team for creating this space for all of our listeners joining us today and having me on. I'm so honored to share some insights ahead of Hispanic Heritage Month as we kick that off next week. My name is Yasmin Rivera-Klein, as Lori shared. I am the president of the Association of Latino Professionals for America, ALPFA Phoenix chapter. Lori and I go back actually to 2021. Going to paint a picture a little bit, Laura. Peak pandemic, virtual webinars. There was a conversation with Alpha El Paso, and they were talking about DEI, and there were a lot of change makers on that conversation, and you were one of them. So I just joined, trying to look for some insights, right, into that industry. At the time, I was working in accounting, just really, really interested into DEI and the different intersections of what that meant, what that looked like. Heard you on the conversation. Then you said Scottsdale. I was like, wait, that is just down the road from me.
I'm in Scottsdale. Yeah.
Hey, and so I sent you a message on LinkedIn, and you have been stuck with me ever since. So
Yes.
A little bit about us. Yeah.
It's been a really good experience. And I want to use that example of like how people should network, because I met you there and I met another woman, Dejanay Robinson, who also reached out and said, hey, let's connect, let's network. And we did in both cases. And yes, you and she have been stuck with me ever since. We have Dr. Patty Delgado Pena to thank for that, because she was the DEI chair of El Paso's ALPFA at the time. And I had not, in all my corporate experience, what was funny was I had not heard of the organization, despite the fact that they've been around 30 plus years. And I think a slightly different name for the acronym, but they have been around a long time. And I thought I was familiar with different organizations through my work at Vanguard and Wells Fargo and recruiting and those kinds of things. Yet I had not heard of this long-time organization. So I think you have done a heck of a job in Phoenix. You've been president of the organization now for 3 years?
Yes, right? 3 years. Yep. Since, well, 2 years, 2.5 actually, since January 2023.
Okay. And when you and I met, you were graduating or about to walk into graduation, I think. And that's when I realized that, I definitely was talking to somebody who is Gen Z, who knew what she was talking about, who was here to help me understand better the differences between the boomer way of life and the Gen Z way of life. So you've been really a big influence for me and a big positive influence for me in all things. Like, you've been a teacher for me. So I really appreciate that. So let's talk a bit about what's been going on. And I've got my notes here just in case folks see me looking down. So the one I wanted to start with today was the differences in language. So we're in Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's one of those months that starts the 15th of September, I believe, and then goes to the 15th of October. So we hear Hispanic, we hear Latino, we hear Latina, we hear Latinx, we hear Latine. There's a number of ways to go about it. What's the difference for people who are not really living in that language? What should they know? What's the difference?
Great question. And one, I just really appreciate us bringing that up, because next week you'll see a lot of different organizations use interchangeable terms. So you'll see Hispanic Heritage Month, which is how it is federally recognized and has been since the 1980s. You'll see some people use the term Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month, Latinx Heritage Month. So I'm going to start about the difference between Hispanic and Latino. So Hispanic refers to the terms of people who have origins of Spain. So particularly, we're talking about people who are in the Latin American region and Spain itself. Now, you're talking about Latin America, and Hispanic also refers to Caribbean as well. Latin America also refers to people who are in the Caribbean. So we're thinking Puerto Rico, which is where my family is from, Cuba, Dominican Republic, and all of Latin America, inclusive of people that don't speak Spanish or have Spanish origin. So Latino refers to the countries in that. So it excludes Spain, but it includes Brazil.
Okay.
We use the term Hispanic, we're including Spain, but we're excluding Brazil. So it's important to note that is why they are often used together. Mm-hmm. And no matter which way you use it, you are going to exclude someone. And so that is often why most people do that. Now, what I will share is just being in the community. I myself identify as Puerto Rican. A lot of my friends are Mexican, Cuban, Colombian. And a lot of us, majority of us, identify with both. Right. And because we are both Hispanic and Latino. Now we get into personal terminology, and here's where the differences are. And this is why it's really important to ask how people identify and what their preferred terms are. Some people prefer to use the term Hispanic. Some people, oftentimes from the West Coast or California, prefer the term Chicano. So when we think of identity, right, it's really important to know some people prefer to identify as their country of origin. So they might say, I'm Mexican American, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm this or I'm that, right? They don't love to get into the terms. So let's just call that out.
Yep.
In terms of inclusive language, those who are native Spanish speakers, right, they may not be able to say certain terms as fluidly as English native speakers. And so wanted to address that as we talk about the difference between Latino, Latinx, and Latine, and what the three main terms are, and why do you see them used interchangeably, some places here, some places there. I'll even share with ALPFA, we are the Association of Latino Professionals for America, but in some of our marketing materials and some of our languages, you'll see us share, this is a welcoming space for Latinx professionals. So the term Latinx refers to the Latino community, but it is a gender inclusive term. Now, where a lot of people get hung up on is in the Spanish language, Latino is inclusive of both genders, but Latinx is created to ensure that everyone, right, doesn't matter how you identify, whether you identify as non-binary, gender neutral, etc. Latinx is that term to just create gender neutrality across the board. Now, over the years of involvement, and as that term got more popular, specifically in the United States, we noticed that a lot of people could not use that term in their language if English is not their first language. So that's where Latine comes into play.
Okay.
Now, some people like Latine even less than Latinx. It is statistically proven that less than 5% of people that identify as Hispanic and Latino use the term Latinx to identify themselves. Now, some people, that doesn't mean that they hate the term. 95% of people hate the term. It just means that's not how they choose to identify. So myself, I choose to identify as Latina, but I use the term Latinx to refer to a broader community. Sometimes you'll hear me say Latino. Sometimes you'll hear me say Latine, right? And so it's important to note that there's not grave differences. Latinx and Latine are created to be inclusive. That doesn't mean Latino is exclusive or Hispanic, right? And so it's important to know that asking people how they identify, asking the audience what their preferred languages is really, really important. At ALPFA, we did our own survey at the company I work for. We have an employee resource group. It's called the National Latino Alliance. And so we had an internal dialogue of how do our members actually prefer to be referred to as? Should we change it to Latinx? Should we change it to Latine? So we did a survey, and overwhelmingly people they prefer the term Latino because that is what they use in the Spanish language. And so that is how they chose to identify. So there's a lot of nuances here, right? And I'll just share that you're never wrong for using the term Hispanic or Latino. You're not wrong for using the term Latinx or Latine. It's all about intention and asking the questions, and don't be afraid to ask how people prefer to identify.
Okay. So it is okay to ask people.
Yes.
It is. Okay, great. So as a speaker, I know that I usually try to mirror the terms that the audience is, but I think it's a little easier to do that than it is to ask somebody one-on-one if you don't know them well.
Right.
Yep. But I think it's something that we all need to do. And it's sort of like with pronouns too. Sometimes I ask people, what are your pronouns? Not what are your preferred pronouns, but what are your pronouns?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll say everyone's personal identity, like some people, like I shared, some people, they're not a fan of terms. They're like, you know what? I'm a Latina, or you know what? I'm a Mexican American, or I'm Mexicana or Chicana. And so everyone's personal preferences will be different. I think you brought up a really great point of how does that community identify? And so if you are a speaker or you're a presenter and you're going to a specific group, just to name a few, right? There's the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. There's the Hispanic Alliance for Corporate Readiness. So you see it in their titles, ALPFA, Association of Latino Professionals. So it's kind of safe. It's like, oh, well, then it's a safe term. So also rule of thumb, right? Do your research on the organization if you don't feel comfortable in asking. But if you have a safe space and a person to ask that you've built a relationship with, definitely make sure you're asking the question before you join in.
Yeah. Great advice. So let's take it over to ALPFA and do a little brag on your chapter here, because I think you got a really big award or something.
Yes. So ALPFA is a national organization. So we have chapters across the United States. And I am the luckiest president because I have the best team in the whole world. We just won Leading Chapter of the Year, which is just such an incredible journey and job to this magnificent team. And if you're not familiar with ALPFA, we're a fully run volunteer organization. So the people that run our organization have full-time jobs. And so they do this purely out of love and craziness. So yeah, we do a lot of different segments to empower Latino leaders. More specifically, we have collegiate chapters here in Arizona, and Alpha Phoenix oversees the entire state as the only professional chapters. And we have over 2,000 members total for students and professionals. So we help provide development programs. We help in engaging our members with connecting them to job opportunities, hosting events, and so much more. Most recently, we launched Latinos in Sports, and we have created equitable programs to make accessing golf completely free or at a very low cost.
Nice. Because that can be an expensive sport to get involved in.
Right. But
you're doing a lot with golf with your chapter.
Yeah, we found that one, it's really engaging for our members. They're really excited about it because they felt like there's never been a safe space where some of them feel like they missed the boat. And so they're in their 30s, their 40s. And because they've never learned, they don't feel comfortable going out and learning in a space, or they don't know how to even get started with that because it is quite expensive. So they just kind of omit and remove themselves. So one, there's that piece. But two, golf is where a lot of business deals happen.
Yes.
So it's important and imperative to learn, because Latinos deserve to be where all business decisions are happening, whether that be the boardroom to the classroom to meeting rooms. We want to be in all levels in between. And sometimes that is happening on a golf course.
Absolutely. Yes. I remember my very first time that I attempted to golf. I had two brothers that were golfers, and so I would go out and hit balls and things like that. I have a really great, like 50-yard, 75-yard, which golfers know is like no distance at all, swing. But I don't do it anymore just because of back issues and things like that. But it was the same way for women back in the day. And a lot of golf courses did, especially East Coast, where you and I are both from, did not even have locker rooms for women in a lot of cases. So it was, the door has opened up over time, but you still have to make the actions to make it accessible for a lot of people. So kudos on that. Your chapter is, so you mentioned like 2,000 people. What are all the kinds of events that you do? And besides golf, what kinds of things do you have coming up in the fall? I think there's a number of them.
So tonight we actually have our Hispanic Heritage Month kickoff mixer. And then throughout the fall, we will have some different touch points with our students. We have our Latino Student Symposium, which has a career fair, lunch and awards ceremony, professional development topics on AI, interview skills, and more. All of that is free, and it's available at Arizona State University. Outside of that, we also have something called Women of Alpha, because there are a lot of barriers for Latinas specifically, but also women at large. And so we celebrate and recognize that through an annual brunch celebration. We have something called a Mercado, which supports and amplifies local Latina businesses. So we ask people to come in and shop and have fun. And then we have a brunch that highlights different Latina leaders and awards to reflect and celebrate a trailblazer and a community impactor.
Wow,
So
nice.
all of that takes place on November 14th. It is in downtown Phoenix. And then we're ending the year with our gala celebration to kind of connect together as a community and celebrate the leaders in our community who have really moved forward, not only to help the local Latino community, but our larger community. Mm-hmm. And participated in that. And so everyone is welcome to that as well. It is December 12th in downtown Phoenix. Lots happening downtown. And there's a lot of virtual programming as well. We have financial literacy webinars coming up, golf events that will be free and accessible, as well as more networking events. So if you aren't already, be sure to follow Alpha Phoenix on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or sign up for our newsletter where you can hear about these events.
Nice. And I think we have an Alpha link. So there we go. So there is the Phoenix-professional-chapter. Please take a look at them. They are very active on social media. I'm on the newsletter. I follow a lot of things. And we're also putting it in the comments. And by the way, folks, if you're on live, feel free to put comments in the area. And if you have questions or anything like that, we will answer them live as best we can. So please do that. If you have anything that you want to add to the conversation or just questions for either one of us, put them on up there. So you certainly, so kind of like go around the corner a little bit here. I know from our conversation, worry about things like the ICE raids and things like that are going on in the world today. What do you worry about with that? And how have you helped your members to deal with all the things that they're dealing with simply because their skin color happens to be brown, perhaps?
Yeah. Thank you for this question, Laura, because I do think this needs to be talked about more, first off.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of people in the Latino community right now feel under attack, just with recent legislation that has been approved, right? And particularly, they feel unsafe to travel. They feel unsafe at events. They feel unsafe belonging in their communities. So what we've done is we've taken a tailored approach in creating a hybrid approach for our events. If people don't feel safe coming in person, we have virtual options and still the ability to connect and interact, and also safe spaces for each other. At our events, we have security, and it's unfortunate that we've had to increase and enhance that, but we are always intentional. We also just have a very intentional eye on where we're sharing our events. So they're not really SEO enabled anymore, right? You have to be a member of our community. You have to engage. You have to follow us on our newsletter and sign up, all the things, just to make sure we are keeping our community safe at all times. We have enabled just some enhanced security options for our events. And so we do have on-site security as well, and just some protocols in the event ICE comes. So those are the things that we've taken just to keep the community safe. And it's unfortunate that we have to worry about these things, but I'm really glad and grateful that so many of our community leaders and our volunteers have stepped up to making that possible. To create more of a safe space, I do want to thank someone, Dr. Lauren Tavares, if she's listening. She's the founder of Coral Valley Psychological Services. She is a bilingual clinician and psychologist, and she just did a session for us on this past Friday on bolstering resilience and creating a safe space for our community. And she did a beautiful job. And that was an anonymous safe space for our members and our community kind of share what's top of mind, but also receive some actionable steps for being resilient and what's happening in the world, and just having news fatigue and all of the things, and just addressing that it's okay not to feel safe. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Like, this is normal, and you're not being dramatic. You're not living in this alone. This is something that a lot of members of the community, not just Latino community, are facing, and a lot of them are in fear.
Yes. And so maybe words with our live, if you put that in the comment, if you can put her contact information or her website or something like that, in case anybody needs her as a resource as well. Are there other resources that here we've got Latina Out Loud. Now that's all about you. So we will get to that. But for the doctor, if we can get any kind of resources that you want to add to the comments afterwards that people would have access to that you think would be good for the community, that would be fantastic. Anything else on safety issues or anything like that you want to discuss?
The only thing I wanted to share, because we talked about this in the past, is what employers could be doing to create safe spaces for their own employees right now. Yeah. And first off, I think that so many employers have the right intention, or leaders and managers, but do not put your employee in a corner, right? And ask them, how are you feeling with the state of the world? They might feel uncomfortable. And so I think the best approach, and what I've seen is, and I would highly recommend, is seeking a licensed psychologist and somebody who is trained for this exact measure, and having a safe space session. And this isn't also just for the Latino community. So if you could have separate sessions with trained professionals who are specialized in different areas, maybe they identify with these communities, highly recommend that. Now, smaller organizations might not have the ability to do that. So if you could find a psychologist or a mental health professional to create these safe space events that can fit multiple communities, or they might have different clinicians within their own clinics. And so they might be able to find them a service provider that aligns to what they need. So for us in ALPFA, what was really important to us was finding a psychologist who was an immigrant themselves and a part of the Hispanic community and completely understood it, and was also bilingual. And so I have Coral Valley, and if you want to look them up, it's www.coralvalley.org. They offer different sessions, and so they're local and based in Phoenix. For anyone joining in from Phoenix, they also do them virtually, but they have employer focused sessions and webinars or team sessions to create and demystify mental health and create those safe spaces.
Nice. Very good. And I'm seeing that people are adding things in the comments. So if you are on live and you know good resources, bring them, share them with the group. Those comments will live on afterwards. We have our biggest audience on LinkedIn, but we're also live streaming to Instagram and YouTube. And so anything we hopefully will show up in those places as well. So you talked a little bit about employers and what they can do. What do I want to ask you about this? There is so many things that employers can do. I just remember, not comparable to this, but I remember having a coworker that passed away, and my organization got somebody like, here's a grief counselor if you want to go. So just those little things that people do and the resources they provide say a lot about leaders and leadership, right, and caring for their people and for the humanity portion of this. Okay, I'm going to take us away from this heavier things to a slightly more upbeat thing, which is first generation people who are just going to college for the first time. You have some experience with that. And I know in your day job too, I believe you have some experience with that. How can you help us understand what it is when somebody is the first generation to go off to college, and what kinds of support they might need or benefit from in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to any first generation college students in the chat. Let us know if you are joining your first generation college student. We want to hear that and celebrate you today. But I'll just share from my own personal experience. I'm one of the first people in my family to have a desk job. So then going to college is a different layer to that, right? And my family supported me. They loved me. They sent me a lot of prayers, a lot of love. But they had no idea what I was talking about when I said, I had no idea how to make my academic schedule. I want to change my major and I'm evaluating this. I want to take a risk and change industries. They had no way to support me, right? They had all the ways to love me and all the best intentions. But oftentimes my family left me feeling even more confused because they didn't know how to approach it. Things like figuring out how to pay for school was one barrier that I approached. And I was fortunate enough to have some scholarships and grants, but then also had to work 2 jobs to try to pay for school on my own. And so I think it's important for people to recognize and understand that first generation college students have different barriers and obstacles as they navigate going to college for the first time, first in their family. They don't have a blueprint to go to. They don't know what to expect in a recruitment season. Oftentimes what I see with our first generation college students is they didn't know they were supposed to have an internship because nobody told them. They thought that because they were working,
Yes.
that was good enough. And so when they're coming out of graduation, they're thinking, I have my degree, I've been working. For me, I was a server at Waffle House. I worked at the mall. I worked at Halloween City. I had a lot of different jobs in between that throughout college. And so, I also didn't realize the importance of an internship until I found ALPFA and they shared that with me. And so if you know a first generation college student, please, 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 I cannot urge you enough to help them find a community that aligns with them. There's a lot of free resources. ALPFA, for example, we are the Association of Latino Professionals for America, but we are open to everybody and anybody. But there's also Thurgood Marshall College Fund. There's also National Black MBA. There's also Out and Equal, Out in Tech, and so many more organizations that have different affinities. So if a student is studying engineering, there's organizations like SHIP, Women in Engineering, etc. And so there's scholarship opportunities on the table you're not going to find on Google. There is mentors you wouldn't find, and so many more resources that can help you navigate writing your first resume, getting that internship, to getting your first full-time role.
Yeah. There's a lot more to it. And you talked about, the language of education and not knowing things that other people might know if they've had numerous generations of people before them to go. My family was first generation. And even though my brothers went, I was a 17-year-old mom and I didn't go till later on. And I actually had to align an organization, let's say somewhat like ALPFA, not exactly, but with a community college. And they were talking about things like tuition hours and seat time and all the kinds of things that I had no idea what they were talking about.
Right.
And it made me feel like the outsider looking in. It made you definitely fall into the imposter syndrome when you're doing that, because people are speaking about things that you just don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yasmin, you did actually eventually get into an internship, yes?
I did.
Okay.
ALPFA, they were able to help me write my first resume. They taught me how to network, how to engage with recruiters. I did make a mistake before I found ALPFA. I saw on, I think it was Sun Devil Sync. I went to Arizona State for any Sun Devils in the room. And I saw this networking event. I was studying finance and accounting, and it was a Beta Alpha Psi, which I ended up joining. And I went up to somebody from PwC, which is one of the big 4 accounting firms. And if you aren't familiar, like I was not, then you really love your firms. So I went up to them. I said, hi, my name is Yasmin, gave them a little bit of an elevator pitch, what I could remember from class. And I asked them, what company and organization are you with? They said, I'm with PwC. I said, awesome. Is that a local company or is it a national company? And their head about exploded.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there were secret rules to networking, and there's secret things you should know and as you are a different major. And so there's different rules that first gens like myself didn't know. I thought everybody was as equally approachable and ask questions. Right. I learned the hard way. Right. And so leaning into community is so important. Leaning into voices that have gone through what you've gone through is also equally important. So just if you feel alone, you're not. There's so many people before you who have felt that way. There's so many people who would be willing to mentor you. Like Lori and myself, I can't tell you how many times I've called Lori and said, I have a leadership issue. You're going to help me walk through this, right? Yeah. So find your community. Don't be shy in sending a LinkedIn message. Don't be shy in researching those organizations and reaching out and finding your own familia.
Mm-hmm. And I think that if you do reach out and you don't get an answer, you may want to circle back a little later because people get busy. But some people will respond to you and some won't. What I don't respond to is a lot of AI generated kinds of things on LinkedIn, because you can tell when they pull bits of your, your profile, but don't really know who you are. They'll say something and you're like, well, I already do that. And if you had read that, you would have known it. And then so I ignore those. Right. But when a real human behind it, I try to respond. Sometimes I look back to that later and I lose it in the spam. But I think that people should reach out more and just ask for mentorship. I have probably a half a dozen people that have come into my life that currently, simply because they were either introduced to me or have reached out blind. And then we have conversations along the way. And I also mentor in a program. So I can't say enough about that. And I think I said it at the beginning, but just in case folks weren't on then, Yasmin's been a mentor to me in helping me understand the differences in the way things are now versus the way things used to be. And that's a topic that I'm really, really interested in. So you can read all the articles, but when you talk to somebody who's actually living the life, it's lived experience. It's the more value than you see with the statistical types of things out there about generations and things. You have to talk to people. So let's see, what else did we want to talk about? Let me look at my list here. I think we got through all of those kinds of things. What else do you want to talk about that we have not talked about?
Yeah, so first off, if you have any questions, please drop them into the comments now, because Lori and I would love to chat your ear off and address them for all of you listening in. And secondly, I think we wanted to share just a little bit more resources for the community, especially as you enter Hispanic Heritage Month. So first off, and I can drop it in the chat after our live session today, but if you are an employee resource group leader or a small business owner or a student and you're looking for different ways to celebrate, I'm going to give you top 3 actions that you can take. So first off, and it's going to vary depending on what you're able to do and willing to do. And so something small that you can do is recognize and share a Latino author of a book, something you've never tried before. And this is a fun way. If you are part of an ERG or a different community, you have some friends, start a book club. And this is a way to empower Latino voices and also share our stories and support a Latino business, right? Someone is an author, right? That's a brand. And so I have a list of recommendations I can share. But that is something I think is really, really powerful, and it's not done enough. And so make sure you're sharing them on social media. Give them as many flowers as you can. Secondly, as much as you are able to, try to challenge yourself to support local Latino businesses in your area. For those in Phoenix, there are so many incredible coffee shops. There's so many ways to shop. You can get ahead of the holidays, but challenge yourself. Instead of going to Starbucks, right? Can you find a local Latino coffee shop? And if you're looking for some, reach out. They're all over TikTok, but they're everywhere in the Valley. Literally, I saw somebody say that they're from, I think Nina said she's from Yuma. There's so many beautiful places there. But change going to the larger chains, right? Don't go to Chili's, right? Try to support local, and ensuring that we're giving those dollars into that community and celebrating them, especially right now. So many people who are part of that community are not going out, and these businesses are hurting. And so as much as you can, please support local, even online, in person, whatever you can do. And then thirdly, I love to challenge our listeners to create more spaces to talk about what is happening in the Latino community. If you can share voices of different influencers or different resources online, for employers, that could be if you are willing and able to host a safe space session. And again, that doesn't have to be limited to your Hispanic employees, but for those who are struggling with what's going on in the world right now and feeling the heaviness, it could really impact a life, and it can make them feel safer and more comfortable at work, because there's a lot of heaviness with trying to shut off, work and personal right now, and what's going on in the news. So just keeping that in mind. I do want to also call out just one more plug, I guess. I have launched, Lori, I know we have this on our list to talk about.
Yes, Latina Out Loud.
Yes, Latina Out Loud.
Yes.
I trademarked, took so many years, and we're finally launched. And so if you're on TikTok, it's a website, also on Instagram, we're going to be posting a lot more content. And this is a love letter, I guess, to those behind me, before me, anyone who needs it, especially those people who are first generation navigating their careers, Latinas and women of color, to gain some insights into professional development. So for me, working at a Fortune 100 company, I didn't know what I didn't know. I still am learning every single day. And so for me, it was starting all the way as an intern to now reporting to the head of talent acquisition, all by 25, right? And so navigating how to increase my salary, how to negotiate internally, how to gain people leadership without formal experience, etc. And so I'll be sharing all of those insights, things I've learned about golf, things I've learned about scholarship applications, and more. So I'd love to have you join my own community if you guys are online or on socials.
Yes, and I'm seeing some comments come in. And by the way, yes, to go up to the top, Nina, thank you for weighing in as a first generation from Yuma. And Emma, hi, Emma. Yasmin introduced me to Emma at one point, and she helped us with a trade show. And she's an ASU student, still a student, I think.
She graduated.
Oh, graduated. Okay. I was like,
now in Boston.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I did not know that.
Yes.
Cool. Very cool, Emma. And then I hope I don't mispronounce this. Correct me if I do. Haiti Mendez. I'm a Latina author, and she lists her book there, and it drops on Monday, 9/15. So it's coming up. So should we be buying it that day then, I'm thinking, because we authors like to launch things all on one day if we can and get the numbers up there. Special packages for book clubs.
I love that, Haiti. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that I've seen this book, and it is on my book list, so we can share more. Send me the link when it goes live, please, because I'd love to make sure I'm sharing it on Monday on your launch date. But yes, check out those authors, right? And so if you're interested in Calladita, No More, My Latina Journey and Lessons, this is kind of sharing what we talked about. Even if you don't identify as Latina and you're not a part of that community, listen to those stories, empower those voices. And so this is a great way. So thank you so much, Haiti, for sharing.
Oh, you can pre-order now. Now, is that the good way, though, Haiti, for sharing? Should we pre-order, or do you prefer that we wait? Because there are two schools of thoughts on that with people that launch books. So let us know in the comments there. She's saying we can pre-order, and do we have a link? Okay.
God, I love it. And if you didn't know, Lori's also an author and a contributor. So check out her books.
And there's another book coming if it ever gets to market. I know.
Another book coming. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Lori, I'm turning this interview a little bit on you. Could you tell us? It's a little
the rules. Right. It's on changing the rules of leadership. It doesn't have a title yet.
Okay.
Its working title is Jack's Story. And in my my keynote address about changing the rules of leadership, and I have a Gen X/boomer boss in there named Jack, and the things that he learns along the way, it's been turned into a storybook. So kind of like a Patrick Lencioni kind of thing. And we're hoping to launch that in January.
Wow.
So I thought it would be out by now, but things take time. They really do.
Yes, it'll be worth the wait.
Yes.
So I can't wait to add that to my book journey, Lori. So definitely, let me know when that comes out, because I want to.
Okay, I will. I definitely will. Yes.
And
yes. And maybe if I can help with anything, let me know. We will also share that out there too. When that book, it looks like the book link is probably live. So, but the one thing that you're talking about, Yasmin, that I really want to emphasize is that people have to help people. Yes. And I especially think that women need to help women. and get the stuff out there and share the resources. And I do believe in, though, we just make more pie if we're running out, kind of thing, rather than like there's only so much to go around. And I mean, there is scarcity in the world, but I think there's also abundance, and we just need to share it. And
Right.
I've gotten further in my life once I figured that out than I did when I thought I had to hoard things. So share things, help a sister out, help a brother out, help a non-binary person out. If you see, one time somebody grabbed me at a dinner when I was a networking dinner, and I was having a conversation with a man across the table, and the woman next to me put her hand, I think, on my leg under the table, and she's like, she looks at me and she goes, "Were you about to ask him what he does for a living?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." And she said, "He's the CEO of his organization." I was like, "Thank you." So he actually reported to me. So she saved me from, kind of embarrassing myself and saying, "Oh, okay." Because she could tell where the conversation was going. Help people when you see them sort of taking a step, because I know you are that kind of person that does that.
Yeah.
What else? I wrote down, here's something I wanted to say earlier. You and I both go to a lot of conferences, and you talked about, the embarrassing moment that you had, but what do you advise people to do if they do want to go to, let's say, an ALPFA conference, which, like National Speakers Association, is a very outgoing, loud, high energy. Some of the conferences I go to are like that, and some are quieter energy. How does somebody get themselves into those conferences and conversations? And also, is there a like student price for somebody that's just starting out?
Yes, so most conferences offer student passes either completely for free and or at a very, very low cost. So for any students right now. And thirdly, a lot of larger public universities have funding for professional development programs that you can submit for. So if there is a cost, I know a lot of MBA candidates take advantage of this. A lot of undergraduate candidates don't know this exists. So when I was at ASU, I didn't find out until my senior year, which I wish I knew earlier. But they reimbursed my travel costs to go to Seattle for an ALPFA conference. And so check out the resources at your university. Typically if you're in the business school might have an endowment fund or a fund just for the professional development conferences. If not, ask your academic advisor if they can help you research that. Or if you are a part of a club, whether that be a student union club and you have a faculty advisor, whatever club on campus, ask your faculty advisor to help you out with that because they have some insights. Or there might be club funding. And so check out all the resources as students. For professionals, just on the topic of conferences, I have, especially reaching out, if you volunteer with a nonprofit or you volunteer with an organization, oftentimes, or if you work for a nonprofit, there might be some donated passes for nonprofits or selected grants.
Yes.
So definitely reach out and check out. There's often an information email on the conference website. But Lori, you bring up a really good point about bringing others into spaces and feeling comfortable. And so I just want to be really, really honest with our listeners. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. It is not always going to be comfortable being the only person in the room and you don't know anyone. The most ideal situation is if you could bring a friend, if you have a mentor, if you know somebody who's going, but don't limit yourself to go to conferences just because you know someone going. If there's a speaker you're interested in, be comfortable being uncomfortable, which is easier said than done. But make sure you're open to connecting and starting conversation. There's a lot of free resources online. I will also share some on Latina Out Loud on conversation starters and how to make connections authentically and organically, not just the typical, what do you do for a living, right? What brings you to this conference? Is this your first time here? Are you passionate about being in this space or this community? Did you come here for this speaker? All of those talking points can find you either a new best friend, a mentor, a mentee, or so much more. So make sure you're doing your own research before going out.
Yeah. And go to the first timers reception if there is one, or if there is an ability to sign up as a first timer. Some organizations do a really nice job with that. And I just got some really valuable advice. National Speakers Association is something I belong to, but I had never done the national conferences. And so last year was my first time. This year is my second time. And I signed up for being mentored by somebody because I was a first timer. And she said, And I think it's good advice overall. Come to the conference with a question you want answered, because there's so many sessions and breakouts and you get overwhelmed with the energy sometimes. Find what question do you want answered, hopefully by the time you go home, and then choose your sessions based on that. If there are breakout sessions, now you know which one to go to. And, look for other people who are there alone, who look lonely, and just say, your first time too? No, you've been here before? Oh, it's my first time. That's pretty much all you have to say at many conferences, and people will sort of take you under their wing. And if not, that's not your person. Go find somebody that will, because there are other people who are feeling exactly the same way as you and are overwhelmed. Also, don't be afraid to pull off and go get your energy back. If you need to get away from people, like I get more introverted the older I get, I think, and I pick up on people's energy. So when it's overwhelming, I need to pull off and get quiet and maybe even take a nap or just lay in my room and read a book and then come back again, a little bit refreshed. So, but definitely ask about the scholarships and the funding that can be out there. There are also women's organizations that do scholarships and funding for different kinds of things that you can get money for. I have benefited from a few of those in my time, some early on and some more recently, for entrepreneurs. So don't be afraid to get out there and start searching for what kinds of things are open and how you might benefit.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, Laura, you brought up a good point. There is grants for if you're starting a full-time business, but also for professional development. Sometimes they're related to starting a business. Like it'll help you start a business or conversely grow in your career. So it depends, but there are resources. Also, don't be afraid to ask your employer. Your development is a gain for them. And so they might be open to sponsoring that if you are employed. So lots of different avenues. Reach out if you have any questions.
Ooh, here we go. We have Nina weighing in about new pathways for youth in Phoenix. Launched an initiative a year ago to empower Latino community members to mentor young people, teens in the Valley, seeking a mentor who reflects their stories of struggle and triumph. The majority of youth we serve identify as Latinx. More here. And so she's got a link there for folks. Definitely, if folks are listening to this at any point in time and you've got resources, please add them here. And we will make sure that they get amplified out there. Yes. And we'll be doing a lot of that over the next month too. So did we miss anything, Yasmin? The book rec list, we will get that.
We will definitely send that out. Edlin, thank you for asking. Nina, thank you for sharing some more resources. I think the one thing I want to take away for our listeners, if you join this as an ally and you're looking to help the community or you are part of the Hispanic community, just know that if you feel a lot of heaviness and you feel as though it's hard to work, it's hard to want to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, you are not alone. You are not alone. And we are here for our community and our comunidad. There's so many people and connecting. And I will speak just for ALPFA because I do represent our chapter, but a lot of our team members have felt this way. And so we are intentionally creating more spaces to be and exist safely together. And so if you are interested in joining our community, there's also online communities. And that is not limited in scope to how you identify. So, and if you are an ally, please amplify our voices. Please purchase those books. Please share the resources online. Please share the stories online because we're limited in how we're heard if we're just leaning on our own community. We need sponsors. We need amplifiers, and we need the different voices at the table to make real change. And so thank you for listening today. Thank you for joining in. I hope to see some of you part of Latina Out Loud, Alpha Phoenix, and kind of all the other spaces that Lori and I kind of run into all the time. And whether that be virtually or in person. And Lori, thank you for creating this space lastly, and also just being an active ally, whether that be to Alpha Phoenix, Alpha El Paso, and so many more communities that you serve to. I know you're on many boards, many organizations, and you donate a lot of your time to these groups. So just thank you as always. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to ask for the link on LinkedIn, and there it is. So reach out to Yasmin on LinkedIn if you want to connect. And two events that I'll be speaking at that have a diversity lens on them tomorrow, on Friday the 12th of September, I will be doing One Community's Point of Pride conference, and I'll be on a panel there about inclusive leadership. And then in 2 weeks, I will be on the SHRM Greater Phoenix DEI Summit, I believe it is, DEI conference, half-day DEI conference. And I'll be doing a talk there about what companies can do, and then be on a panel as well. So those are two events that we welcome people to come to, one tomorrow and one in 2 weeks. And there's so much going on in the Valley of the Sun here in Phoenix. And so I'm sure there are other places as well. Yasmin, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. I love you. I love all the things you're connected with. Gracias to you. And also LinkedIn users is the same thing. So thank you so much. And folks, we will see you around.
We will see you. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, thank you.